Hello everyone, today I bring you the first game that I played in 2025. This game was for the Portuguese Cup. It was against João Almeida, that was rated 1928 at this moment in time. And yeah, for this year I didn't play many games, but one thing that I made clear to my team was that if I'm gonna play, I would highly prefer to play the white pieces and only the white pieces. My team was kind enough to give me that opportunity, so here I am playing the white pieces for the majority of 2025. So, for this year, I decided to stick with the English, with c4. My opponent went knight f6, I went g3, e6, bishop g2, c5, so now we transpose into some sort of symmetrical English. Knight f3, knight c6, I castled, and now my opponent surprised me with b6. I was out of book here, I didn't really know this b6 move, but I think I played it in a very principled way with d4, striking in the center immediately. My opponent played bishop e7, and now we reach the first critical moment of the game, right on move 6. b7, bishop b7 is apparently a big mistake that gives white quite a big advantage if I play the move d5, which I'm sure I considered it, but I didn't really know how the game should continue after knight a5. I ended up playing knight c3, which felt more natural to me, but it's not as good at all. But let's go back and see why d5 is so good and how to handle it. So knight a5, now like this pawn on c4, he's hanging, and if you play a natural move like b3 to defend c4, now you are losing the d5 pawn. So yeah, this is not pleasant at all. The computer says that after bishop e2, white is still much better, but this is very hard to play, to just give a pawn like this for activity. But apparently here the strong move is knight c3, and you are indeed losing the pawn on c4, but you play e4, and again you kinda play for this compensation that you have a big center. This knight is misplaced, the king, the black king is still in the center, the pieces are still very passive, and yeah, this is very hard for me to like playing the game, I don't have this understanding of just going for this like sacrifice and believing in them. So I'm not gonna fault myself too much for not going for this. I think it wasn't really findable for me without preparation, but next time I'll know that this is an idea. So yeah, I think my opponent probably saw the same and didn't really think that d5 was good. And so the game proceeded with knight c3. It took on d4. We traded a bunch of pieces here, and now my opponent plays queen c7. And here I think I had the first big think of the game. For my opponent, the plan seems very clear. I think my opponent wants to play like rook ac8, pressure c4, maybe develop the bishop to e7, maybe develop it to c5 to hit the queen, and he probably just wants to castle. And I need to... My game plan should also be clear. I want to bring the rooks to d1 and to c1, maybe play b3, but the one thing that I didn't really understand was where should I put my bishop actually. Does it go to e3? Does it go e3? Probably not. Doesn't seem like a good square because it gets with bishop c5. Bishop f4 might be an idea. Bishop g5. I spent like a lot of time thinking, where should I put my bishop? Do I put it on f4 or do I put it on g5? And I ended up playing bishop g5. My opponent plays quickly bishop e7, and now I play e4, trying to gain some space in the center. My opponent immediately attacks the e4 pawn that is pinned. I just unpin. I don't want any tricks on that diagonal. My opponent brings the rook to c8 as expected, and now I play e5. And the goal with e5 was to gain more space and to just trade a few more pieces, stabilize with b3, and now I think I'm doing quite well, you know. Black's king is still in the center. I have a strong pawn on e5, you know, and yeah, I shouldn't be in too much trouble. My opponent plays knight f5, attacking the queen, and now I was happy to trade queens and go into this endgame. I just played queen e4. My opponent played h5, stabilize the knight, e on f5, and also maybe pressure the king side with h4. Very nice. And here I just didn't wanna think too much. I just traded the queens, which probably isn't that good. I could have probably made a better move, like rook ad1, for example, I think. But my opponent takes with the rook. I bring the rook to the center. King e7, rook d3, and I double on the d file. And here, yeah, the position is very equal. You know, I was happy to get like out of the opening and with a pleasant position. So yeah, my opponent here starts to attack my center. He plays f6. I thought for a second about f4, but I think f4 is not that good because after my opponent takes, I take with the pawn, and now this pawn is super weak. So I decided, okay, let's just give him the center pawn, taking on f6. He takes back with a g pawn, and now, I mean, my position is still good, but I start to get worried about this strong pawn formation in the center, and yeah, I was starting to feel, you know, a bit uncomfortable. Okay, I play knight b5, and my opponent just plays a6, and I play knight back to c3. I don't know why I played knight b5, honestly. I feel like we reached this part of the game where I don't really know what I'm doing, and I just start making moves because even if you don't know what to do, you need to do something because your time is ticking. And I guess I played knight b5. I don't know why. For me, that move doesn't do anything because I just lose a tempo. I have to go back to c3. My opponent plays d6. I also didn't really understand what my opponent was doing. I'm not gonna lie. So he plays d6. Maybe he wants to just move the king to this side of the board, or maybe to this side of the board. I don't know. I also didn't know what my opponent was doing. I played a4. My opponent played rook c5. And here I played rook e1. As I said, I was just making moves, honestly. I didn't have a clear plan in mind. I didn't see a way to break through. I just wanted to keep everything solid. My opponent plays rook e5, and I didn't want to trade because I think that only helps black, so I doubled the rooks on d file again. And my opponent played rook c8 here. Yeah, I had to be careful about some ideas with either d5 or even b5. This knight might be loose if I move this rook from the third rank. So, you know, we were starting to get low on the clock, you know, below 30 minutes, I think, both. So for me, that is already like starting to get nervous, you know, at that point. So I play h4. My opponent plays rook g8. Now he's threatening the pawn on h4. I saw it, thankfully, played king f1. And now my opponent played rook g4. And at this point in time, it looked like my opponent was dominating me because his pieces are way more active than mine. And that's true. I was on the back rank and I was very passive. But even though these pieces of black look very active, they also feel a bit uncoordinated, you know? Like, it's hard that if I turn things around for black to, like, you know, gain some harmony and some coordination with these pieces. Because even though they are all active, they are all in, like, kind of weird squares, you know? So yeah, here I played this 92 move, and I had a simple idea, actually. I just want to play knight f4 and attack this pawn on h5. I think my opponent like completely missed this. He played rook c5, and now I just played knight f4. And now things are not simple at all, because if my opponent like moves this knight to like protect the h5 pawn, then the d6 pawn is hanging. So yeah, things are starting to get very bad for black in just a couple of moves. So basically, I just did nothing. I just passed the moves and I was just like playing super passive. And my opponent just felt way too like confident that I wasn't threatening anything, and all of a sudden things turn around and I just counterattack him. And he plays rook c8, and at this point my opponent is fuming. He's super tilted. And I start to gain confidence, of course. I play rook e1. I could have taken the pawn on h5 immediately, but I decided, why not first play rook e1, attacking the e6 pawn? I think this is even more annoying for him. And now my opponent plays e5. And now again, taking on h5 is no longer an option, because then my knight would be trapped. So I played the even stronger knight d5 here. And my opponent played king f7, and this move actually blunders the game on the spot, but I didn't find it. I played the natural knight takes b6, gaining the pawn and attacking the rook, but actually there was like a simple direct win with rook f3. And all of a sudden, like, this knight can't really be defended. You can't play king e6 because I take the knight and then I fork you on e7. Let me just demonstrate that. So you're losing here. And the same thing here, it's even it's the same. I just take the knight and then I fork, so I completely missed this, and my opponent also completely missed. And yeah, if my opponent plays something like this, I just take on f6, and I think that's all she wrote. I'm gonna take on d6, then take on b6, and take on e5, and it's just over. Yeah, I missed this. Well, yeah, I think I just got too tunnel visioned. I don't think I even considered rook f3, because if I considered rook f3, I probably would see it. But I didn't even consider rook f3. I just immediately took on b6. Now my opponent played rook b8. I played a5 to protect the knight, and now my opponent wants to trade rooks. I didn't want to take immediately on d4 here. That would only help black, so I doubled the rooks on the d file. My opponent activated the king. I played b4, solidifying a5. He trades rooks, plays knight d4 here. I play knight d5. And yeah, my position is very solid. I was feeling like this. I was playing for two results, and that's fair enough. Like, I either managed to clutch up this winning position up a pawn, or I choke the position and it ends up being a draw. But it's very nice when you're playing for only two results. So yeah, rook c8 here by my opponent. I played rook c3, keeping everything super solid. I didn't see any tactic for him. I was like focusing a lot to not like blunder something in one move again. My opponent plays knight c6 here. I play king e2. Plays knight e7. I take on e7, like, and just activate my king. I was feeling good about this. My opponent plays d5 here. I take, and now he plays rook b8. I play rook c4. He plays king d6, king e4, and now f5. We trade pawns. I give a check. He plays king d4, and now I play rook c6, attacking the pawn on a6. My opponent gives a check on f6. I go king g5. He takes on f2, and here I take on a6, and he plays e4. And at this point in time, we were both low on the clock, of course, and I was very nervous, bro. I was very nervous because, you know, I knew that I was completely winning, but I didn't see a clear path forward. And I just wasn't able to calculate. I was just so nervous. I just wanted to win, because that would be huge for me to start the year on a win. And yeah, I end up trying to block the pawn on e4. My opponent plays e3, and he's basically just putting all his eggs on this e3 pawn, to try to distract me, and I end up playing a6. My opponent plays rook a2, and I take on h5, and my opponent plays e2. So at this moment in time, I'm up 3 pawns. And yeah, I have like 2 pairs of 2 connected pass pawns, and my opponent has this lone pawn here. And the funny thing is that I feel like if I play like b5, and let's say my opponent gets closer to the pawn, I start pushing these pawns on the king side, and I eventually have to sacrifice the rook for the pawn. Let's say I play like b5, let's say king d3, I play g4, king d2, g5, queening, takes. Yeah, this position is just completely winning. And yeah, I don't think in the game I realized that I could go for something like this. The thing is that it's impossible for black to stop these pawns. Like, this king is way too passive, and this rook can't stop like everything. a6, I take on h5, pawn e2, and now I play a7. The start of the choke. a7 is completely unnecessary. Of course, the trick is that if my opponent takes on a7, I take on e2. But I missed that my opponent doesn't have to go for that. He can just defend the pawn with the king d3. And here there's only actually one move that wins for white. That is crazy. That we went from everything basically wins to I only have one move that wins. And I didn't find the move. I played check. And when you start giving checks like this, you know something went wrong and you screwed up. Apparently the only winning move is g4. I mean, it's like, I'm not even gonna go and like explain this move. I mean, it's just like an only move. The computer calculates that this is the only way to win. But yeah, I start giving checks, and all of a sudden, like, everything is hanging in my position, and I basically lost all my advantage. And I might be even in trouble if I don't actually keep checking the king, because this pawn will fall, and then I'll have these 2 disconnected pawns that are still far away from promotion, and my opponent is only 1 square away from promoting his pawn. So yeah, at this point, of course, I was still panicking, and I just gave a couple of checks. Yeah, we ended up repeating the position, and it was a draw. I mean, I just can't win a game, guys. I just choke. I've been choking like all the positions that I've been gaining for the past like 5 games, or almost all of them, and it's like crazy. Like, I'm up 3 pawns in a rook endgame, and I still managed to draw the game. I have no words to describe this. This is actually hilarious, and I need to lock in. I keep saying this. I've been saying this for years, but I really need to lock in. Like, this is starting to become like a joke, bro. Like, I can't anymore. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoy this. I mean, it must be super frustrating for you guys that want to see me win as well. Anyways, enough yapping. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys for the next game. Bye bye.